I still remember the night when my entire life started to fall apart, as clearly as if it had happened just yesterday. Sarah, my wife of 7 years, had once again told me that she would be working late. She had been saying that a lot recently, spending more nights at the office, always with an excuse, a tight deadline, an urgent meeting, or a project that simply couldn't wait. At first, it all seemed like part of her routine, but then one night, I noticed something, the unmistakable scent of cologne lingering on her blouse, a fragrance that wasn't mine. That night remains etched in my memory. Sarah standing at the door, brushing off my questions with a weary smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I knew her well enough to sense that something had changed, but I couldn't pinpoint exactly what. I tried convincing myself that I was overthinking, but the unease gnawed at me. I couldn't sleep that night, and as days passed, my suspicions only grew stronger, consuming my thoughts. Eventually, I could no longer ignore it. One evening, she claimed to have a business dinner. After putting the kids to bed, I tried distracting myself with a movie, but the tension in the house was suffocating. My phone buzzed with a message from my friend, Rob. "Mark, you okay? You've been quiet lately." I sighed deeply and decided to be honest with him. "I don't know, man. I feel like something's wrong with Sarah. She's always working late or out with friends, and when she's home, she's distant." "Have you talked to her about it?" he asked. I tried, but she brushes it off and says I'm imagining things. His response was cautious but direct. "Look, I'm not saying anything's going on, but if you feel something's off, you owe it to yourself to find out." I stared at his message for a long time, his words echoing in my head like a warning. That was it. I knew I had to uncover the truth. The next day, Sarah left her phone on the kitchen counter while she went to take a shower. My heart pounded as I picked it up, my fingers cold and trembling. I knew I was violating her privacy, but the uncertainty was unbearable. As I scrolled through her messages, a notification caught my eye, a text from someone named M. My stomach twisted as I opened it. "Last night was amazing. Can't wait to see you again." It felt as if the ground beneath me had vanished. I set the phone down, my hand shaking as I tried to steady myself before she returned. How could I confront her? What could I say without breaking down? When she came back, I forced myself to act normal. She kissed me on the cheek, too distracted to notice the strain in my smile, then left for work. As soon as she was gone, I sat there, staring blankly at the wall, trying to make sense of betrayal unraveling before me. This wasn't just a fleeting affair. She was falling for someone else, and I had never seen it coming. That evening, I reached my breaking point. Sarah had once again said she'd be working late, but I was done believing her lies. Knowing she had errands to run before heading to the office, I decided to follow her. I dropped the kids off at my mom's, telling her I'd be back soon, then set out to uncover the truth. I parked outside her office building and waited. Minutes ticked by, and then I saw her arrive. Her heels clicked sharply against the pavement, her posture tense in a way I hadn't noticed before. Hours passed, and my sense of dread intensified. Just when I thought I couldn't take any longer, I saw Mike, her co-worker, walk into the building. My heart sank. This was it. I waited until the office lights began to dim before quietly making my way inside, slipping down the hallway unnoticed. My pulse pounded as I neared the conference room. Peeking through the glass door, I saw Sarah and Mike sitting close together, their heads bent over scattered papers. My stomach churned as I watched them laugh, their chemistry undeniable. And then it happened. Before I could even process what I was seeing, they leaned in and kissed, deeply, passionately. My world shattered. "Sarah!" I burst into the room, my voice echoing off the walls. Her face turned ghostly pale as she whipped around. "Mark, she started, but I cut her off, unable to contain the devastation ripping through me. "What is this?" I demanded, my voice breaking. "How could you do this to me, to our family?" "It's not what you think," she stammered, desperation in her voice. "Not what I think. It's cheating, Sarah." Rage surged through me. "You've been lying to me for months, sneaking around like a thief in the night." Mike stepped back, raising his hands in defense. "Mark, this isn't the time or place." "Shut up. This is between me and my wife." I snapped. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Mark, please, let's talk about this. Talk. I let out a hollow laugh. You think words can fix this? You betrayed me, Sarah. You betrayed our family. I didn't mean for it to happen, she sobbed. I swear, I was lonely, and Mike was there to listen. Lonely? I spat, my anger mingling with despair. You have 2 kids at home, a husband who loves you, and that's your excuse? She crumbled, guilt washing over her face. I know, and I'm so sorry. I'll do anything to fix this. But I couldn't listen anymore. I couldn't bear it. I turned and stormed out, feeling like I was losing a part of myself with every step. I got into my car and drove home, my vision blurred with tears. My hands clenched the wheel as my mind spiraled. How could she do this to me? How could she choose him over our family? When I arrived home, the silence offered no comfort. At least the kids were at my mom's for the weekend. A deep ache settled in my chest as I walked to the empty living room. Echoes of laughter from happier times haunted me like ghosts. I made my way to the bedroom, the weight of betrayal crushing me. I started packing a suitcase, each item I placed inside feeling like another fragment of my broken heart. I grabbed a few shirts and jeans, not knowing how long I'd be gone. But one thing was certain. Things would never be the same again. I had to leave. As I packed, my gaze settled on our wedding certificate, elegantly framed on the wall. A sharp pain clenched my chest, and without a second thought, I yanked it off, tearing it in two. The weight of that irreversible action crashed over me. My entire existence had been built on a deception, and I could no longer pretend otherwise. I finished packing, resolved to leave, at least for a few days. I found a motel in the next city and booked a room. As I ended the call, an eerie sense of dread crept over me. My life had spiraled out of control, and now I was utterly alone. When Sarah returned home, she called my name, but silence greeted her. Her eyes landed on the empty closet hangers and the shredded remnants of our marriage certificate strewn across the floor. Panic took hold as she darted through the house, her voice rising in desperation. "Mark, where are you?" she shouted, her voice trembling with fear. Fumbling for her phone, she dialed my number, only to be met with voicemail. "Mark, please, I'm so sorry. Pick up. I love you. I can fix this. Just give me a chance. Please come back," she pleaded, her voice cracking under the weight of her emotions. But my decision was unwavering. Hours later, I called Rob. I told him everything. The betrayal, the lies. It was all true. The anguish in my chest was suffocating. As I asked him to meet me for a drink at a bar near my motel, I poured my heartbreak into our conversation. I revealed my plans to divorce Sarah, and Rob listened in silence before offering the name of a lawyer he knew. We lingered over a few more drinks, dissecting the painful situation before I eventually returned to the motel. The following morning, I wandered aimlessly through a nearby park, my hands trembling as reality set in. Every step felt burdened by the sheer gravity of my choices. The days blurred together as I tried to adjust the motel. Each passing hour reminded me that my life had been irreversibly altered. I spent countless hours lost in thought, reflecting on my marriage, my children, and the uncertain road ahead. One thing became clear. I couldn't continue like this. The love I once had for Sarah had been reduced to nothing but ashes, and there was no salvaging what was left. Summoning my resolve, I finally called her. "Mark, please," she whispered the moment she answered. "Just talk to me. I'll do anything to fix this. I love you." I exhaled a heavy sigh, my heart sinking. "Love is enough, Sarah. You shattered my trust, and I can't just erase that. I'll go to therapy. I'll change. Please don't leave me," she begged, her voice cracking with raw desperation. But I remained firm, despite the pain that gnawed at me. "I have to think about the kids," I replied, my voice steady. "I won't let them get caught in the middle of this mess." "Mark, please," she murmured, her voice laden with despair. I knew what I had to do. I had to be strong, not for myself, but for our children. They deserve stability, a life free from the tension that had begun to poison our home. After hanging up, I took a deep breath and dialed my mother's number. She answered almost immediately, her familiar voice offering a fleeting sense of comfort amidst the chaos. "Mark, sweetheart, is everything okay?" she asked, concern threading her tone. I hesitated. "Nam, I need to talk to you. It's about Sarah and me." The words felt like lead in my mouth, but once I started, I couldn't stop. I told her everything. The deception, the late nights, how I discovered Sarah with someone else in her office. A heavy silence hung between us before she finally exhaled, her voice gentle yet filled with sorrow. "Oh, Mark, I had no idea you were going through this." "I'm so sorry," she murmured. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know," I admitted, rubbing my temples. "I can't even bring myself to go back to the house. I thought I'd stay at the motel a little longer, clear my head." She absorbed my words, then asked softly, "What about Emma and Jake?" "That's why I'm calling," I said, pressing my fingers against my forehead. "I think it's best if they stay with you for a while, just until things settle down. I don't want them caught in this storm. I need time to figure out how to tell them." Mom sighed, but her voice held quiet determination. "Of course, honey. They can stay as long as you need. I'll keep them busy, take them to the park, and try to make things feel normal. You just focus on what you need to do." Relief washed over me. "Thank you, Mom. I don't know what I'd do without you." "You don't have to do this alone, Mark," she reassured me. "Take all the time you need. No matter what happens, you have a family who loves you. We'll get through this together." Even though she couldn't see me, I nodded. Her unwavering support meant everything. Knowing Emma and Jake would be safe, surrounded by love, gave me the smallest sliver of peace. The road ahead was still long and uncertain, but at least I wouldn't be walking it alone. A few days later, I returned to the house. Sarah was waiting. She looked drained, like she hadn't slept in days, her eyes bloodshot from endless crying. But I was past the point of caring. I had come for the rest of my things. To begin again without her. "Mark, please," she whispered as I packed. "We can fix this. I'll do anything." I shook my head, my voice hollow. "Sarah, do you honestly believe I can ever trust you again?" Tears spilled down her face as she reached for me. "I was lost, Mark. I got caught up in something I never meant to. But I realize now what a terrible mistake I made. Please, we have to try for Emma and Jake." I zipped my suitcase, feeling nothing but an empty ache. "I am doing this for Emma and Jake," I said quietly. "They deserve parents who respect each other, who love each other. I can't give them that anymore." That day, I called my lawyer and filed for divorce. The hardest moment came when I had to tell my children. They were too young to understand, too innocent to grasp why Daddy wouldn't be coming home. But I vowed to be there for them, to fight for every chance to be the father they needed, even if it meant rebuilding my life from the ground up. In the months that followed, I pieced myself back together. The nights were long, lonely, and the wounds of betrayal didn't heal overnight. But little by little, I found a new rhythm, a life no longer built on deception or empty promises. Looking back, I realized I lost something precious in those moments, but I also discovered something invaluable, what I truly needed: honesty, loyalty, and a love strong enough to endure the test of time.